right, here is our gain staging session. So we're going to talk a little bit about signal to noise ratio, making sure we've got plenty of healthy headroom in our mix for dynamic and creative processing, keeping an eye on the stereo out, making sure we've got room for mastering, and we're not going to overload our mix too much. All right, so here's our multi-track dropped in. Now, typically in a recording session, you'll have maintained like a good signal to noise ratio when recording. When you're doing your physical gain staging at that stage, aiming somewhere between -18 to -9 dB. Strong signal, but enough headroom. But occasionally, like this project here, you might be given a multi-track that has been recorded, before the session, before you've got your hands on it, and you might find it's been gain staging correctly, which this mix has been. So you need to go in post and sort some of that out so you've got enough headroom for mixing and making sure that your mix isn't too overloaded, nothing's clipping, nothing's too hot. So one of the first things we'll do, I'm going to open up the mixer here with X, scroll across, and on the stereo out, we're going to chuck a level meter in. You can find this under metering, level meter in stereo right here, just in the audio effects lane. And what this will do, this comes usually with a -12 dB threshold right here, and this will keep an eye on your entire mix on the stereo out, and it will show you where it's clipping, if it's clipping, or just where everything is registering overall. Okay, in terms of its decibel level, it comes with a -12 threshold, which you can change. This is what you'll generally mix up to. I tend to mix maybe up to around -3 dB, so like quite hot, but there's still plenty of headroom here left for mastering. -3 dB is quite a healthy amount, I find. But it's up to you. It's your discretion. You can mix up to that. Obviously, it won't let you exceed 0 because beyond 0 dB in the plus range, you're clipping. Okay, you've got hard clipping in this area. So I'm going to set mine to around -3 dB. I tend to mix and work on rock tracks anyway, so I tend to mix them quite hot, but still leave enough room for mastering there that the mix project isn't clipping. So we're going to chuck this on the stereo out so we can keep an eye on our mix throughout our project and see where everything's set. So I've dropped in this mix here, and so let's take a look here. We can have a look and see already that quite a lot of the capture is quite hot. Okay, these transients are huge, so I'm not expecting too much really in terms of like healthy signal to noise ratio. I think it's going to be quite hot, so we'll click play, usually around like the hottest area. So let's take it just after this break here. I think this hits a chorus, so let's have a listen and see on our mixer, which I'll open with X here, how everything's sitting. Alright, so we can see here that the stereo out, it's a plus 8.8 dB that it's registering out there, which is really unacceptable. It's far too hot, really noisy, things are clipping. So if this was recorded well enough in that initial stage, you wouldn't have this problem right now anyway. Things would have been gain staged correctly. So let's take a look here. The kick drum, -1.2 dB, snare top, -1 dB. That's just leaving you -1 dB's worth of headroom before you hit 0 dB. Yes, okay, not a lot at all there. So way too hot. Traditionally a nice signal to noise ratio is going to be -18 to -9 dB, which is going to avoid the noise floor enough, but still leave you a generous amount of headroom for dynamic processing, creative effects processing, and later on mastering if we keep that stereo out free of clipping as well. So what we need to do is now go in post and change the gain on these tracks so that we can start working with processors that's not going to continue to overload our mix. So we can do this a couple of ways. We can either go in track by track and insert a gain plugin, and we find that under utility, gain, just here on mono tracks. Okay, mono tracks right here. And if we solo each of these tracks, let's just let this kick drum play through. just reset that. Okay, this kick drum is clipping at minus 1.2 dB. It's not clipping it, that's where it's registering at, which is very, very hot. You can see that here on the level meter. So we can take this gain plugin and we can bring this down, by attenuating that gain, or indeed boosting it if you need to on any tracks. It does, it'll work both ways. It's not just an attenuator, but it will boost as well. Keep an eye on this kick drum here, and we're going to aim somewhere between minus 18 to minus 9 dB here. If you need to, click right here on the dB meter to reset that. Alright, cool, much better. Okay, it's not so hot. There's plenty of headroom up here for some processing later on, and we've still got a healthy signal. So you can continue that, and you can chuck the gain plugin on each individual track here and work with gain staging that way. Benefit of that is that you get to have individual focus in each of those tracks, but on a huge project like this, it might take you a while to get through that. But if you're in a bit of a rush, you have a deadline, that's not going to work for you. What we can do is, if we highlight all these tracks, okay, I'm just going to Command A, we can head over here to Functions. We'll go down to Normalize Region Gain, and we've got this little window here, and this target level right here, this is kind of like a blanket threshold for, if you select multiple tracks, or for just one track, it'll be the threshold for that one track, where you decide what the limit is in terms of dB as to what your tracks are going to register at. So we've discussed minus 19 to minus 8 or minus 9 dB. That sort of range there, okay, your discretion, is the healthiest amount for signal to noise ratio. So we can pull this down. Obviously it won't exceed, okay, just like our level meter threshold, 0 dB, because beyond that, we're in clipping territory. So let's bring this down, so we agreed maybe like minus 18 to minus 9 dB around here is nice and healthy. So let's settle on maybe like minus 13 dB for this. So all 25 regions are going to be set to that amount. So if I click apply right here, and if I zoom in, if we take a look at our transients, again, they've gone way down. Let's undo that. There you go. You can see that's where they were before. Let's redo. Great. So now none of these tracks here are going to exceed minus 13 dB. Okay, leaving like 13 dBs worth of headroom on each of those tracks. So now let's play our song again, and let's keep an eye on the level meter on the way out, and see if things are better. If things are still hot in places, then we can go in with the gain plugin, attenuate where we need to, or indeed later on, if you find that some tracks are a little weak, use that gain plugin to boost tracks up a little bit more. If your signal to noise ratio isn't desirable, remember you have processes like EQ and compression, and sidechain compression, mixed bus compression, lots of different things here that will increase the volume of your tracks. So let's take a look here and see what's going on. Let's bring this back to that drop, to a loud point just before the chorus, and see where things are sitting. Marvelous. Okay, so our stereo out here, minus 4 dB was its loudest, which is great. That's a whole dB underneath the threshold that I set here. It's a loud track, that's fine, but we've still got a healthy amount of headroom here, and of course compressors can limit that dynamic range further a bit later on, so our mix glued a little bit more together. Okay, it's not going to be so as aggressive and dynamically unstable. So let's take a look here. Our kick drum, yeah, minus 14, minus 13. Looks like our overheads, minus 15 and minus 13. The bass guitars here, minus 12 dB, minus 16 on the electric guitar chorus. The acoustic guitars, all sitting really, really nice. So we've got plenty of headroom now to start mixing, getting to some dynamic processing and creative effects processing. That's going to leave you plenty of headroom, when you start to mix now. That's pretty much it. One of two ways. That gain plugin to go in surgically, or to boost or attenuate those tracks, or we can use the normalize region gain here. Again, this doesn't have to be for all tracks. You can select a few tracks if you just wanted to normalize the region gain of the drums or the bass as one group, and you wanted to set a threshold there so they didn't exceed a target level of dB. You can do it that way. And it's important to keep an eye on that level meter as you continue to mix anyway. So we're not exceeding 0 dB here, that our mix is in a nice, it's all in the green or the yellow, and it will stay all good. There we go. That's step one. In post, obviously, in pre, when you're in the recording session, you'll make sure things aren't clipping and you've got enough headroom for processing down the line. That's it. There is gain staging.